Well, there are always questions that look very unfamiliar at every kind of interview that you go, and it's similar when you go for your visa interview too, because not every question that you rehearsed at home is going to be asked you. There are some of the questions that would come unexpectedly, but how do you deal with it? How do you think on your feet? Hey there, you're welcome to my platform again. My name is Kwekwe Diama Ansa, and I've told you I am not an expert in this field. You know that, of course. I'm just sharing my little opinions and views on the topics that I select, the little research that I put into it. That's what I do here. And I mean, just appreciate me by liking what I do, by subscribing, and then also sharing with people that you know clearly need this information that I'm going to be putting out there today in this episode. And today, you know what we're talking about, right? Today, we are focusing on unexpected questions or unfamiliar questions. Well, I know for sure that majority of the people who are watching me may have gone for their visa interviews before and they may have failed because some questions were posed to them and were surprising. It was like, well, I didn't prepare for this. I didn't know this was going to be asked. Yes, it happens, literally happened to everyone, and I will be sharing my personal experience with you. When I went for my interview, one of the questions, literally half of the questions that I was asked, I didn't rehearse for it because I didn't know that that was going to be asked, because the little videos and the little information that I had from the people who were leading me was that I was going to be asked these kind of questions, this set of questions. So I rehearsed towards that. But unfortunately, I went there and then the interviewer or the counselor was asking me something different. I had to think on my feet. How did I do that? That's what we'll be discussing today on the show. Let's get into it. So, the visa interview, right? You've seen samples of the visa interviews. People have done several videos. Myself, majority of the people on the internet have done, I mean, samples. They've told you samples of questions that could come when you go for your visa interviews. And that's because these are repeated questions that we always hear it asked when people go for their visa interviews. And some of them include the likes of, why are you traveling to, if it's to the States, if it's to Germany, or I mean to any kind of country that you're going. But let me use the US as an example for today's briefing that I'm doing. So you're asked, why are you traveling to the US? You're also asked, okay, if it's a sponsorship thing, who is sponsoring you, or how are you funding your trip? If it's an education that you're going to embark in the US, you're asked that question. You're also asked about your home ties and all of that. These are very like simple questions that come every time. You can be sure that you'll be asked that question, but it's not just that, because what I have experienced with my interview and also with interviews that I had friends go for in recent times is that they are trying to tailor it towards your kind of need. And if I say they're tailoring it to your kind of need, that's what I mean. So if you're traveling for maybe as a tourist, your questions, aside from the fact that why are you traveling to the US, how are you sponsoring your trip and all of that, you get questions that will be direct to the reason for your travel. So you can be asked that, which places are you going to visit? How much does it cost for a ticket for one of the tourist sites? Okay, what do you know about this tourist site? What is exciting about these tourist sites? All these questions are not likely questions to happen, because most people who go ask the basic questions. But now, as I told you, things have changed. So you'll be facing some questions like what I just mentioned. And how are you going to think on your feet if you have not rehearsed for it or if you're not ready for it. So we'll delve into my experience. So for instance, in my case, aside from the fact that why are you traveling to the US, how are you funding it, where would you be staying, these basic questions. One of the questions they asked me was about my profession, and I knew that it was going to come up, but I didn't know it was going to be an integral part of the interview because it went so deep that I was asked, if you know me, you know that I'm a journalist. So I was asked about my job, how many years I had been working as a journalist, what stories do I file as a reporter, what kind of news do I give as a news reader. I was asked when last I even filed a report and what the report was about. I was asked if I knew how to use any editing software. All these things are not things I thought of because once I said I'm a journalist and I was able to identify myself with my ID card and with my works on the internet, I thought it was just a done deal for me in terms of identifying myself. But that was literally the hinge of the interview that I had. And so that prompted me that, well, it's not just about answering the basic questions, but there could be certain questions that are specific to your needs. And so that is why you need to pay attention to that. How did I answer these questions? When I went in there, in as much as I had rehearsed and prepared for my interview, I was open-minded, right? So first off is being open-minded. Open-minded in the sense that be ready for any kind of question that comes to you. But how do you become open-minded and answer your question even well? You need to read more about the stuff that you're going with. If it's education, you need to read about the school. You need to know the school maybe. You need to know about the course that you're going to do. You need to know about the end product of the course that you're going to do. You need to know about, if it's job, what's the job details, the job description, what do they do? All these things must be learned even before you go for your interview. That's part of your preparations. Well, so that is being open-minded, that any kind of question could come from any kind of page or anywhere. So you're very expectant that once any question comes and is unfamiliar, you are not thrown out of the whole space that you're in. Like you should be able to stand your ground, think on your feet, because you remember that you have little time to answer these questions because you don't have the whole day. Mostly the interviews will last mostly for 5 minutes, and with the 5 minutes, how long are you going to stand there to think on your feet? And there's so much pressure on you. So being open-minded is key. Secondly is being prepared, and being prepared adequately, which I've talked about in most of my videos, and I'll constantly repeat it to you, because if you are not adequately equipped, that is being prepared, having read widely about the stuff that you're going in with, you will not know how to answer it. Remember that there's no right or wrong answers that you give necessarily. It's at the counselor's discretion to say that, well, I think that he deserves to travel for that journey. You get it? But you should be prepared adequately even before you go for the interview. Also, one thing is being able to suppress your fear or your nervousness, because you know what? If you are afraid of something, it's hard for you to think through it, because once you have that notion that, I'm scared that I could fail this interview, then you must as well not even go for the interview, because you will be so much tensed and pressured, which I've done a video on that, on how to build your confidence in my previous videos. So you can also take a look at that. But if that captures the most part of you, then how are you going to think on your feet? Because remember that if you're thrown out of the whole space, thinking on your feet and being able to answer the questions rightly becomes a problem. And you know, the interviewer doesn't have much time to assess you and does not care about who you are, how brilliant you are in school, and the fact that you're nervous and so you can't answer your questions. You must gather that confidence and be able to answer it. So, fear or building your confidence is key. And the last thing I'll talk about is being able to play around with words or being able to play around with things, you know. At times you know the answer, but you know how to answer it becomes a problem. For instance, when I was asked that when last did I file a report, I just thought of it because I remember that the day before that I had filed a report at my company, and so I just had to recall everything that I did. I was like, oh yeah, I just did a story on so and so. I explained it, and then she even asked me. I remember she asked me, "What's the outcome of that story?" And I further on explained that, well, we are hoping to get results because the government is trying to intervene in it and salvage the situation. You know, so if you are not able to play around, in as much as you know the correct answer, it is tough for you to string your words together. So all of these things will culminate and come together for you to be able to answer unexpected or unfamiliar questions. Remember that the interviewer does not care that you could have answered it if they gave you ample time to do it. They just want you to be able to convince them there and then. So you have to be able to do it in your mind and in your will. And so that's what I'm saying, that all these things should be able to play a part. Being prepared adequately, having being very confident, also being open-minded to expect any kind of questions that could come your way, and also having or being able to, string words together or play around with stuff whilst you think about it. Because you know, once you ask the question, mostly the first few minutes is when you're gathering your thoughts, and once you start doing that, you should be able to say something just to ease into the correct answer that you want to give to the interviewer, right? I hope this one will go a very long way to helping you, because I get people saying that I didn't prepare for this, but it was asked me, I didn't expect this kind of question to come. Yes, you do not select or set the questions that come during your visa interviews. All you got to do is to make sure you answer it and answer it correctly or rightly or believably, you get it, so that your interviewer or your counselor would be able to give you that visa that you need. Well, thank you so much again for staying with me, and this is one of my episodes. I've got some intriguing episodes coming up soon, so you want to stay with me. Thank you so much, and do subscribe. I'm waiting for you to subscribe now. You done? Click that red button there, the subscribe and the notification bell, so that once I drop a video, it's easy for you to pick up, right? Thank you so much again.